Good afternoon, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm applauding all of you for being awesome. And I'm applauding my new to you setting. Yay. This is my bedroom. I apologize for the lighting conditions and for the mess-ish in the background. But, aside from that, I have internet access. I have the capacity to make these videos in the first place. And I don't actually know when I'm going to get my office back. Not officially. So this will be interesting for the next foreseeable future. I'm going to be here. And I will work on getting the lighting conditions worked out. So, not much I can do about the sun, but, overhead lighting, that kind of thing. I would like to continue with you today on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Bam! Because this is a really good series, I think. But I'm enjoying it. So, y'all tell me what you think down in the comments. Okay. I left off on Article 17. By the way, this is my third attempt at making this video. After 2 failed attempts a couple of days ago, because I didn't know whether I would have internet access in here, but after 2 failed attempts a few days ago, I said to myself, F it, I'm just gonna wait, see what happens. If I don't have internet access, I can't do this anyway, because I can't upload anyway, so what's the point? Right? So here we are, and I have internet access and access to videos and things of that sort. I'm trying to find my document. I apologize. One moment. Come on. Come on. Oh my gosh. Professionalism at its finest. Good job, Lil. No! Alright, maximizing document. Ba-bam. Alright, so to continue where we left off, and yesterday, by the way, was a write-off, so sorry about that, but, yeah, I had doctor's appointments and stuff all day, plus kind of tearing apart my office, but okay, Article 17, where we left off. This one is subsectioned like a lot of them are. 1. Indigenous individuals and peoples have the right to enjoy fully all rights established under applicable international and domestic labor law. Okay, so we're getting into stuff about the workforce here. There is really, really noticeable racial discrimination in a lot of workplaces, and a lot of labor in Canada, it's not necessarily subsectioned by race, but the whole stereotype of the not from here cab driver. Usually the person with the accent will be the person on the phone trying to sell you car insurance or whatever, that kind of thing. We have these stereotypes built up in our minds about, well, they just couldn't get a better job. Not true. They are not often held to the same legal standards as, people born in Canada, number one, but number two, just plain old white people, okay? That is not fair, says the white person who has a reliable job. I do have a reliable job, and I'm grateful for it, but a lot of people don't, and we need to fix that. Thank you. Number 2. This one's kind of long. States shall, in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous peoples, take specific measures to protect Indigenous children from economic exploitation and from performing any work that is likely to be hazardous or to interfere with the child's education, or to be harmful to the child's health or physical, mental, spiritual, moral, or social development, taking into account their special vulnerability and the importance of education for their employment. For their empowerment, not for their employment. Because we're talking about a lack of child labor, okay? Child labor exists in Canada. Child labor exists throughout the world, okay? It's not as commonly talked about in Canada as a thing like sex trafficking, for example. But we all pretty much know that all of our clothing is made for us by ostensibly slaves overseas, because all this work is, outsourced to people we don't have to care about, so we can pay them less for their labor. Children are often the subjects of exploitation, of unpaid work, or if they are paid, it's incredibly and unspeakably minimal compared to the wage that a adult would get, compared to the wage that predominantly a white adult would get. And child labor is not okay. And every single person in a colonized country profits off of child labor, except for the ones who are being oppressed by said labor. So racial minorities and, again, children, these are the people that we have to look out for, especially children. I'm sorry, but think of the younger people in your own life. You want them working 16 hours a day in a factory? I don't think you do. All right? And this is me talking from a very privileged position too, by the way. I never had to do anything like that. So that is not, it's not really something that I understand, right? But it's also something that I understand is wrong. And we need to work on fixing that, because even if we're good capitalists, because capitalism is just about this, it's just about money, even if we're good capitalists, it doesn't follow that we are good people. All right, Number three. Indigenous individuals have the right not to be subjected to any discriminatory conditions of labor and, inter alia, employment or salary. All right, we all know that non-white workers are often very underpaid. And I mean, you see this especially, I'm not even going to say especially in America, but a really poignant example I can think of in America is Mexican migrants or illegal immigrants, people who are kind of not supposed to be there, at least by the incredibly restrictive laws that we put on, quite frankly, people who don't look like us. So, because they're not supposed to be there, wink, wink, the dominant power of the country to which they come feels that they are permitted to exploit these people for their labor. And again, that is not okay. However, that is not exclusive to Mexican migrants or illegal immigrants, or even legal immigrants, actually. That can also be true of Indigenous peoples, who, by the way, have been on this continent, I do believe, for the past 12,000 years. Compared to them, we're all a bunch of immigrants. And we can probably, some of us at least, trace our ancestry back enough generations that our families were not living on this continent. Unless I am speaking right now to an Indigenous person, you can probably trace your ancestry back to when your people were not living on this continent. And at that point, your family were a bunch of immigrants. And I'm speaking for myself here too, because my dad is an American citizen, so technically he's an immigrant to Canada, even though he's been here since he was 5 years old. My mom's family has been here longer, but we're talking like 3 or 4 generations longer. It is not that much, comparatively speaking. Like I say, somewhere between 10 and 12,000 years, you're not an immigrant, nor should you be treated as an immigrant, i.e. treated as lesser. because that's what we do to people who don't look like us, you know? And that's bullshit. Thank you, not censoring that. All right, I gotta find my document again. It keeps disappearing on me, and I'm very disappointed. Grumble, grumble. All right, maximizing. Whoop. Hello, document. You're pretty. Okay, Article 18. Indigenous peoples have the right to participate in decision-making in matters which would affect their rights through representatives chosen by themselves in accordance with their own procedures, as well as to maintain and develop their own Indigenous decision-making institutions. Okay, so a lot of the time, and again, and as usual, I don't know whether this is universal, but a lot of the time in Indigenous cultures, they would have or still do have a chief or maybe two chiefs. Technically, I think you only need one, but that chief, male or female, by the way, would have a council of people. Not elders, okay? That's a different thing. But they would have a council of people who helps them make their decisions, i.e., who kind of made their decisions for them. Okay, so we're talking here about, pretty much about democracy. Democracy, the rule of the people, okay? That's where you get the word demographics. Words like that, right? It just refers to, like, the population. All right. So in Canada and America, under the westernized government, I believe we have a nominal democracy. Okay. We have a nominal democracy. Really, what these systems are is plutocratic, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that democracy and plutocracy are necessarily exclusive of one another. But capitalism tends that way. Capitalism also tends towards authoritarianism, which is bad for democracy. Under a lot of traditional Indigenous systems of law and rule, you would, as I say, have the council making decisions and having the chief dispensing those decisions, okay? So the council people would be subject to what the people, like the body of people, actually wanted. And we don't get the idea for, say, the Senate or the House of Representatives. We don't get that from Indigenous people. We get that from Rome, which is largely, though not exclusively, where the Western style of government came from. I'm not exactly talking about a completely different system. Our legal systems do have quite a bit in common in that there will be a nominal head, like Justin Trudeau in the case of my country at the moment. And it looks like he's going to win the next election. I don't care. I don't like him. I don't care. But, so Justin Trudeau in Canada at the moment, and in America, Joe Biden, right? That's the nominal head of the country. Who's really in charge of both of our countries are the very, 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 very bloated rich people, okay? But under the Indigenous system, it's supposed to be the community of, councilmen or council people, because females would be on this council as well. And in a lot of cultures, by the way, not saying all, because there are patriarchal Indigenous cultures too, like the Seminoles, I do believe, are patriarchal. But under the matriarchal system, it would largely be women making these decisions, and the chief would be the mouthpiece of the council, regardless of what dispersion of sexes and genders it consisted of, okay? Nowadays in westernized politics, you don't see a very even divide of the sexes and genders. You just don't. It's always been, because many European cultures are patriarchal, it's always been the rule of the male, and a lot of people still fully support that, because conservatives and Christian conservatives, anyway, not saying that all Christians are conservative, because I know they're not, but, they fall back to the rule of the father, which is literally what the word patriarchy means. Because in the ancient context from which we get these laws and rules, women did not rule. Generally, I mean, okay. You can look at the Bible, and yes, there are female leaders. You gotta go poking, but they're there. All right? I'm not advocating that you read the Bible, by the way. You don't have to. I'm doing it. You don't have to. Really. Please don't. If you want to save some time. Quite a lot of this is quite boring, unfortunately. But, all right, moving on, because the whole point of that point was to say that Indigenous nations have the right to autonomy over their own ruling structures, and that they should not have to be subject to ours when theirs would be A, better, and B, more applicable. Moving on, if I can find my document. Why do I keep losing it? This is annoying. Maximize. Cool. Article 19. States shall consult and cooperate in good faith with the Indigenous peoples concerned through their own representative institutions in order to obtain their free, prior, and informed consent before adopting and implementing legislative or administrative measures that may affect them. I only have a few statements to make on this one. Number 1, pipelines. Number 2, the militarization of the police forces in unceded territory. Look into that, because that's kind of a freaking big deal. Minority populations in this country and in America are kind of much more highly monitored than non-minority populations. So in this case, I'm talking about whites. All right. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is Canada's federal police force, was literally created to keep children in this country in the residential schools, to keep them from running away. You know, because a frightened 4-year-old is what this country has to worry about. Piss me off. Okay, so this document is not just all love and hugs and cuddles and kisses. It pisses me off too. Good, because as I said with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I think the mark of any good work of not only literature, but in this case legislation, has the potential and the power to piss you off. If you read them thoroughly enough. And next series we do, by the way, I have said this before, but I will say it again for anyone who's new. I intend to go back to my old stomping ground, which is disability activism, because I am a person with multiple disabilities. Name a major organ and I'll tell you what's wrong with mine. But basically what I want to do is to read the AODA, the Access for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, from top to bottom, and tell you everything that's wrong with it. It's going to be fun and a very long series, just so you know. I'm going to need some help on that one. Oh, my lovely and omnipotent consultant. You know I'm talking to you. She knows who I'm talking about. Okay, Article 20, and this one is subsectioned as well. Indigenous peoples, number 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions, to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of subsistence and development, and to engage freely in all their traditional and other economic activities. Wow, activities. That has a V in it, Lily. Well done. All right, I want to talk about this one. I heard an argument once from a person on the alt-right who is also a white supremacist. A lot of people on the alt-right are white supremacists, unfortunately. The argument he made was that, I'm sorry, these are not my words, but these are the words of people who think this way, and the people who think this way are the people I'm trying to fight. His words were to the effect of, Indigenous people do not have the right to own this land because for the thousands of years they have been here, they have done nothing with it. Two things. Number one, I cannot speak to the unspeakable arrogance of a comment like that. What makes you think that our system is better than literally any other system in the world? Okay? This comment, by the way, was coming from a white European. And it shows that he's definitely, aware of his white European heritage. By aware, I mean narcissistic about, quite frankly. I'm not going to name names. The guy doesn't even have a YouTube account anymore because he got shut down over shit like this. Okay, so thing number one, overbearing arrogance. Thing number two, do you know the reason why, quote, nothing was done with this land before we got here? I don't think you do, but again, I don't know whether this is universal. A lot of Indigenous nations did not lay claim to the land on which they live. I'm not going to say lived. I'm going to say live, okay? Because the idea is that the earth is our mother. Every single human being alive right now is an infant, like the youngest of all possible infants, the infant born 2 minutes ago. We are all of us infants compared to the life of our mother, the earth. So not only are we stupid compared to the earth, we haven't been here as long, we don't have experience. The earth is itself the experience. But that's the first point in that subpoint. But second subpoint, how does one own their mother? Even in Western cultures, for the most part, a son was never thought to rule over his mother, okay? Even if she was a widow and, her father was dead, she was not necessarily considered the property of her sons or of her son. She was considered more she was considered to be more their matriarch, but under their care. There's a difference, though. To care for your mother versus to own your mother are two completely different things, okay? So the whole idea of stewardship of the earth, the whole idea of environmentalism, quite frankly, a lot of that comes out of the Indigenous perspective. Again, I do not know whether that view is universal, because I do know that there are some nations that do make land claims, like this territory is ours kind of thing. And I mean, that's fine because we do it too, all right? But even from that perspective, there was always this sense of, because this is our home, we have to look after it because we only get one. That's the thing about the overbearing arrogance of capitalism and of the Western economic mindset. More, give, 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 give. Constantly, we want more. But here's the thing, our planet is not going to be enough to sustain our needs if we keep looking at it with the perspective of, greed and avarice and mine and I deserve, and every human being is deserving of certain things. Okay, we are all deserving of human rights. We're all deserving of dignity. We are all deserving of freedom. Just these super integral things that everyone kind of understands we all deserve. You can understand that people will deserve that, but you might not act upon that understanding because you could think, well, I deserve more. But why? Why do you? As compared to someone else, why do you deserve more? And I have to speak for myself here too, because I am not badly off in my life, right? I have more than a lot of people do. I'm a Westerner with internet access. Automatically, I have more than 90% of the world, okay? But the fact that people can recognize that they don't deserve the entire pie. You know, that you cut a pie into pieces and, you know, you share the pie. I like pie. 2 thumbs up for pie. But, you know, you gotta share the pie. You can't have the entire pie for yourself. Why? Because people who overeat get sick. And people who overindulge in their greed and their avarice, Westerners, a lot of the time. Anyway, you know, like, the more you've got, the more you want, but want can never be satiated. The only way to stop suffering is to stop wanting, quite frankly, and now I sound like the Buddha. Okay, so now that we have strayed very far afield, I'm going to move on. Ba-doop, and ba-doop. Okay, wow, okay, that was only point 1, I'm so sorry. Point 2. Indigenous peoples deprived of their means of subsistence and development. I'm going to start over. I'm sorry. 2. Indigenous people deprived of their means of subsistence and development are entitled to just and fair redress. Give it back, okay? The whole thing, like, this was a few episodes ago, but I'm going back to this point. The whole thing about holding Indigenous artifacts in museums. I have heard this argument so many times online. Give us back our stuff, okay? Remember. I am talking about living nations here. You know, Indigenous nations surround us. They are just as alive as Canadian culture and American culture and Mexican culture and British culture. You know, all these different things. These are living people we're talking about. These aren't relics of the past. These aren't ancient dinosaurs that long since went extinct, despite some of our best efforts. Oh boy. Okay. Article 21. This is the last one for the day, but this also has subsections, and I need water. 1 moment. Okay, Article 21. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right, without discrimination, to the improvement of their economic and social conditions, including, inter alia, in the areas of education, employment, vocational training and retraining, housing, sanitation, health, and social security. I cannot tell you how bad this has the potential to get. I do not spend time on TikTok, but a few days ago, actually when I first attempted to make this video, a few days ago, I saw on a friend's Twitter a tweet of a TikTok that he found where a person on a reserve, or a reservation, if you're American and watching this, they turned on their tap and the water ran black. I'm not kidding. The water literally ran black. Do you know how disgusting that was? By the way, for anyone who didn't see, this is the water I can get out of my tap. Okay? That's not fair. And that sounds very childish to say. That's not fair. It's not fair. Okay? And when I say fair, I mean things being, you know, shared and evenly distributed, and things being on even footing for everybody. We all deserve, as I say, the same rights. We do. I don't care if you're a multi-trillionaire or if you're a pauper who is living in the gutter, okay? Intrinsically, we all deserve the same rights. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much money I have. This, she holds up and shakes the water bottle. This is a human right. You can't live without water. Your body is 75% water. All right? You can't live without this stuff. And the water that I saw in that TikTok, even if it were boiled, I sincerely doubt it would be safe to drink. This is why a lot of the time on these reserves, people have never drunk anything except for bottled water. bottled water is really bad for the environment. For one thing, it comes out of your tap anyway. Or it could come out of my tap anyway. For one thing, that. For another, the plastic, okay? Plastic. Very, very bad for the environment. If people had clean running water going into their homes, we wouldn't have a need for this bottled water crap, or at least not nearly as much of it. All right, we need to cut down on this, and the whole problem is these reserves or reservations are not the only places in the world where this is a very big problem. However, because we're talking about Indigenous people, I'm going to stick with that. Why is this a problem in the developed world? This is disgusting in the moral sense, not just a physical sense. I have said this before, I will say this again. What century is this? Are we living in medieval times here? Because looking at that video, A, it really grossed me out, but B, it made me think, what are we doing? Like, what are we waiting for, A, and B, why do we not care? I don't understand. But this is me being an idealist, you know? And a lot of people would say that idealism is naive. I don't care if I'm naive. I'm right. Thank you. Good gods. All right, maximize my document, if I can find my document. Cool. 2, and this is the last subpoint for the day as well. 2, states shall take effective measures and, where appropriate, special measures to ensure continuing improvement of their economic and social conditions. Particular attention shall be paid to the rights and special needs of Indigenous elders, women, youth, children, and persons with disabilities. All right, so this one is talking about vulnerable populations within vulnerable populations, because all of the things that were just mentioned, those are cross-cultural, those are cross-racial, you will find them everywhere. You don't have to be a white person to have a disability. You don't have to be a white person to be a woman. You don't have to be a white person to be gay or trans or anything of that sort. You will find all of these demographics across all races. And in the case of Indigenous people, because Indigenous people themselves as a body are already impoverished, and I shouldn't count them as a body because these are all different nations, remember. Between 500 and 600 Indigenous nations exist within Canada alone. Canada by itself is big enough to be a continent if it were detached from mainland North America, okay? So you get a lot of people who are already living in poverty, but then within those nations, you also have the usual demographics that are traditionally oppressed, even in Western societies. Women, children, elders, people with disabilities, right? Those are kind of the big 4 in terms of vulnerable populations, because health-wise, safety-wise, things like that, they are made vulnerable by our culture, all right? Our culture is largely one that focuses its care and attention on rich, white, old men. I don't have a problem with rich, white, old men. I have a problem with the system that says only rich, white, old men matter. All right? That's where my problem lies. And we need to disperse that whole idea of only you matter to making everyone matter. All right? And the only way we're going to do that is to work together, people. As I have said, Justin Trudeau, currently rich, white, middle-aged man, is Canada's head of state, is our well, not head of state, I suppose that's the Queen because we're a constitutional monarchy, but he is our prime minister. There is currently a federal election going on. I don't know whether he's going to win it. I don't really care. I'm an anarchist, not the torch and pitchforks kind, but what I fully believe is vote for whoever you like the best and then come home and do the work. Because no matter who you like the best, they're not going to do the work, all right? They want to maintain the status quo so that the people who are already where they are will stay already where they are. That includes the rich, white, old men, all right? And those are the people who are desired to be at the top because they know what to do with money. They know what to do with influence. La-di frickin' da. So do I. I have a brain. Thank you. So do you. You have a brain. Thank you. Use it. All right? If the only message that you can take away from my whole body of work is do your reading and use your brain, that's 2 messages, but they're 2 sides of the same coin. If that's all you take away from anything I do, good! That's a step in the right direction. Do your reading and use your brain. Thank you. 2 sides of the same coin. And I like that coin. All right. So now that I have successfully made this video, that's all, folks, for today. What day is it? It's Thursday. So tomorrow is Friday, and we will carry on from here. So far as I'm aware, I will still be in this room tomorrow. The lighting is not that bad, but I'm kind of shadowy over here. I get that. So I will see what I can do about that. But other than the interesting location, you know, things are going tickety-boo. So I hope you enjoy my ramblings, as usual. And I will see y'all lovely people tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye. Mwah.